Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast, where here with us today is the one and only Aurora Winter, MBA, who is an award-winning, best-selling author. She's also a successful serial entrepreneur, media trainer, creator of the Spoken Author Method, and founder of Same Page Publishing. Aurora left her lucrative career as a TV executive decades ago to become a full-time author, trainer, and entrepreneur. Using storytelling for business, she created a life of freedom, creativity, and contribution. Now she helps her clients turn their words into wealth, wisdom, and wonder. She's written the book, the fantastic book, actually, Turn Words into Wealth. We've got a copy of it here. Highly recommend it. And it sparked all kinds of ideas and thoughts and questions for me that I can't wait to unpack with you, Aurora. So welcome to the show. Super excited to have you here. I want to start off with one of my personal favorite points that you made in the book. And I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you make it. But you make the point that our brand isn't what a lot of us think it is. So tell us what our brand isn't and what is it?
Your brand is not what you think it is. Exactly right. Your brand is the story that other people tell about you when you're not in the room. And our brain doesn't have a lot of shelf space for your story. So it's very concise. But our brand
And
is also the biggest way to leverage our revenue. If you don't have a brand, then it's a dive to the bottom. You'll be competing with Walmart and China, and the lowest price wins. You don't want that equation. You want authority, you want status, you want some special sauce.
yeah, you talk when you lay this out, you tell some of Oprah's story, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit of like how did that how did that strike you? Like, where did you first learn this, or where did you first hear about that story that it made such an impact for you?
Well, one of the things that is outstanding about Oprah, which most people don't even think of, is like she is on the cover of every Oprah O magazine. It's amazing. She realized that building a brand was really important, and that it wasn't just about, the clickbait on the cover, but her image repeatedly on the cover. And many people have done this, but I think she was really the first to pioneer that. And Oprah's got a, billion-dollar brand. She broke through. I mean, she came from basically nothing, almost worse than nothing because she was in the hole, had a terrible childhood, and she's become, one of the wealthiest women on the planet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So someone's okay. I'm in. I want to share my story. One of the frustrations that I've seen for founders, kind of at this point, is they go out to share their story and they're just competing against the world's biggest brands, right? They're in many of the same spaces, trying to break through the noise. So you go into some of like the neuroscience behind how we can really cut through all the noise. What are some of the key takeaways for you for the underdog, if you will, trying to build their own brand?
Well, first, I just want to address the underdog point. Yes, there are huge names out there, like we're competing with Seth Godin, we're competing with Mel Robbins, we're competing with all these David Goggins, J.K. Rowling. But are you really? As a coach, you might be the only person that somebody actually has in their circle who can help them solve that problem. So instead of thinking, oh my gosh, Tim Ferriss would do a better job, they're probably not going to get Tim Ferriss as their personal coach, right? So put that aside and just understand that you're the answer to somebody's prayers, and you may be the only person that they know who's in their loose circle or only person available to talk to them about solving their problem. And then we need to understand, in order to make the biggest difference that we can, we need to understand the neuroscience of communication. And most people blow it in the first few seconds. They're at the Rotary Club or they're introducing themselves. They start by saying their name and their company name. And by that time, people have zoned out. So it's really good to start with what's the problem that you solve. You want to start with a little taste of novelty. Then you want to give a little taste of social proof. And then if you want to show off a little bit of your authority, that can work out, and do all of those things really quickly so that then you can get onto the deeper message. Don't send the the verbal equivalent of an Excel spreadsheet. So quick example, this book, Turn Words into Wealth, the title itself is that novelty. It's like, what topic area are we in? And then it won outstanding nonfiction book of the year. That's hitting the social proof. And then I can go into explain the 27x ROI on a story.
That's awesome. I love that. I love the way you broke it down. It's interesting. I've not heard folks distinguish as quickly or as clearly between social proof and authority, right? Because a lot of times those are coming together. But I love the book example. Um, I want to jump to this next question because I see it all the time. It's very true for coaches, very true for folks in professional services, but happens in a whole lot of industries. And that is that founders working their various degrees of success, but they come to this really uncomfortable realization, almost despite that success, that they've started a job and not a business.
Right. They fall into the
And
trap.
yeah, and so once you get there, it's kind of like, well, what do I want to do with that? And a lot of folks, the answer is, I want to scale past that. I don't want it to just be trading hours for dollars or all the things that go along with that. But they're really limited to, like, they've built a tremendous degree of local trust and credibility, but it really falls off very quickly after that. So, like, how do you get past that? How do you scale beyond that local community or impact and build trust and credibility at a greater scale?
One of the key ways I love to do that is through books. I mean, if you have a book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, it's available around the world. And if you have a nonfiction book that clearly answers a problem that has great keywords in the title and the subtitle, people can find you from New York, from Los Angeles, where I live, from Paris, from London. They can find you if you have a very good book with a solid title. And I really love that because I mean, back in the day when I started in publishing, it wasn't that easy to get a book published. There were all these gatekeepers. You were so very likely to get no after no after no. One of the clients I'm working with, he got 100 rejection letters, and now his books have got over 3,000 reviews on Amazon and have won 10 awards. He just couldn't get past the gatekeeper. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to if you're a coach or an author, sorry, if you're a coach or an expert or a leader of some kind, a book can be a great way to reach people around the world. And there are 7 different ways to make 7 figures with your book.
I love that. And you took the words right out of my mouth because that's exactly where we're going next. So, another challenge that I've seen, especially for founders who've been doing it for a while, right? And to some extent, like, your own success can create the biggest barrier here. You hit the kind of high, medium, 6 figures, and it's kind of good. It's better than it was, but it's not all that it can be. But if you're there long enough, it can start to shape what you believe is possible, right? And there's a lot of folks who've written themselves, I could never make $1 million. I could never make 7 figures. But you offer in your book 7 ways of doing that. I was wondering if we could walk through those because I thought, well, it's just a fascinating concept, but there's some really practical stuff in here as well. So I want to kick off strategy number 1, attracting premium clients. And the tell us a little bit about what that is, but also tell us, like, how is that different from what most of us are doing before really setting on this strategy?
I think the authority that you get, the root of the word authority is author. So attracting premium clients at premium prices is one of the most valuable things that you can do with your book. The bottom line is, if you are good at solving a particular problem, how much is that worth depends on who is the person that you're serving. So I always like to ask the question, what am I really, really good at? Or have my clients ask the question, what am I really, really good at? What do I love to do? So you want to have those 2 filters, but then who is it worth the most to? I have clients who, are selling their company for 9 figures. My services helping them create $1 million message or a multi-million dollar message and take it and get an award-winning book is worth more to the person than a person who's, I don't know, retired and writing a poetry book who has no vision for the impact or the income. So by having a book, you can, and I've done this multiple times, you can attract premium clients with premium prices because the book can serve both as an attractor, but also as a repellent. It's kind of like Match.com. You don't actually want everybody to contact you. You want to have a filter. And in a book, you can communicate who you are, who you serve, and who you don't serve. So, for example, I'm pretty spiritual, and it's fairly obvious in my book, Turn Words into Wealth. So people who are diehard atheists might go, gosh, Aurora is not the coach for me, and vice versa.
And that's a good thing, right? I think one of the things, the traps is, I have found oftentimes the best clients, the ones that you can create the best impact for, enjoy working with the most, are often the most like selective in who they hire, right?
Yeah.
Not always, but many times. And so if you're like, hey, I do everything for everyone, the person who really wants one thing done really, really well, or one
Yeah.
small subset, is going to be much more selective. And that's the person you want to work with. But you can't do that by saying, hey, I help with everything all the time.
Yeah. I help everybody with everything. That's a
Yeah.
recipe for a disaster. The second thing you can do with $1 million message, which could be in a book, but it doesn't have to be in a book, is to attract, investors and launch a startup. So when I was living in Silicon Valley, after I got my MBA in 2015, I took a year off, went to Italy, got my MBA, and I came back. I'm like, I could do anything, which was a problem because, decision fatigue. But I went to Silicon Valley and I decided to help people with their startups. I'm like, well, who is that worth the most to? $1 million message or a multi-million-dollar message is worth a lot to people raising capital. And every client that I helped had gone from no funds raised to raising 7 or 8 figures. So there's a power in a clear, concise, compelling message. And the startup entrepreneurs that I helped were so brilliant, but that was sabotaging them because they were going 14 steps down. And
Yes.
first, the person thinking maybe I could invest, they had like no idea. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
They had to slow down, create some metaphors, create connection, and kind of dumb it down. And then once the person was on board, they could go deep. I mean, a great example of a metaphor I loved on your website, your example of the sports metaphor, which drove home your point about the different kinds of leaders. And no, you don't want to be the coach on the sideline who catches the ball, robbing everybody and being, a foul. That's not good. And it's lovely when you have that kind of story. It makes it so much easier for people to hear you.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
there's sorry, go ahead.
No, I love it. So one of the things that's really cool about folks who've worked in the investment space is like the feedback loop is so short, right?
Yeah.
So even if you're not going after investors, there's still so much to learn because the same things that get investors to pay attention are the same things that get everyone to pay attention. And so this idea of simplifying your message, dumbing it down, that it feels surprisingly scary to a lot of really smart people.
Yeah.
How do you help folks to just kind of process the internal, like, I don't want to look stupid if I dumb down my message?
I don't lean into that exactly. It's more like encouraging people how they could make a bigger difference by, in 10 seconds, having something
Mm,
clear and concise. But you're right. I think the smarter the person is, the more degrees they have, the worse this problem can be. I mean, my older brother is a genius. He's got PhD, he's got Masters of Engineering, and he's a quantum physicist. And sometimes he's extremely hard to understand because he's so smart. But here's the takeaway that smart people can understand is they did a really interesting study. It's published in the book Significant Objects. They had 100 distinct objects on eBay with a story or without a story. The stories were written by 100 different people, and they weren't hype. They were things like, these pot mitts are for sale. My grandmother has passed, but I remember when I'd come home from school, she'd bake chocolate chip cookies and we'd chat after school and she used these pot mitts. Now you're not getting the cookies or the grandmother when you buy the pot mitts, but adding a story adds significance and you do get the significance. And the result
mm,
was that the objects on eBay with a story sold for 27 times more.
yeah.
So that's a stat that even smart people can go, oh, I think I should practice my stories.
I love that. I think it was that same story. Wasn't there was like a horse's head or something that went for like 43 times as much or something
Yeah.
outrageous like that. It's so cool. I love that the significance does pass on. It's a brilliant insight. Okay, I want to jump to the next one here. This one, I have to admit, caught me out of the blue. I was not expecting it, especially in the number 3 spot. But number 3 was movies and merchandising. So how does this work? Because there's not a lot of founders who have making a movie as part of their business plan, but maybe more of a should.
Well, my background's in film and television. I'm an award-winning screenwriter. I used to be head of development for Canada's largest film and television production company, and I raised 5 million with a partner in London, England, and we went on and made 8 films. So it's part of my way of thinking. I have written a fantasy series, actually for young adults. Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse is the first book in that series, and BBC has expressed interest in a 12-part
Wow.
series. So this can really happen. So, but here's the interesting thing. Well, with some of my clients who are working on fiction, we are pitching their projects as TV movies or TV series. And it's very cool to understand that if you have a nonfiction idea, there might be some possibilities. I was blown away by Marie Kondo, who doesn't even speak English as her first language, little petite Japanese woman who wrote a book about the joy of tidying up. And Netflix had a series following her. She'd go into people's homes and help hoarders tidy up. It was a big hit. And that, of course, enhanced her brand and her
Yeah.
reputation and brought many people to her. So you may find that if you're a coach or a consultant, you have some expertise, that there might be a possibility to consider, and certainly that's where the real money is.
Yeah. Fascinating. Very, very cool. I like that. All right. Strategy number 4. It's not just have a book, but there's a specific way to use a book to scale up and make $1 million. What is it and why do you recommend it?
So item number 4, we're going through these really quickly, is the free book plus upsell. So before I've written 10 books or published 10 books, I've written more than 10. So when I got my MBA in 2015, prior to that, I was doing something else. I actually had founded the Grief Coach Academy and I was helping people through grief. But I realized, you know what? I don't want the rest of my life to be about grief. People were coming to me and saying, hey, how did you get on TV? How did you get on radio? How did you write so many books? And I thought, well, maybe people would be interested in having me as a marketing mentor. But my list, small list of 12,000, they knew me as the Grief Coach Academy founder. So it's a pretty big pivot from talking about grief to talking about marketing and messaging. So I thought I should test this idea before going in whole hog. And I totally recommend this. If you have a new idea, you want to start a new product or service or launch a new business or pivot, why not test it for 90 days? So what I did is I called up a friend who was the director of coaching for Tony Robbins. He'd interviewed me before about grief coaching. I said, hey, would you interview me about marketing? He's like, absolutely. I know who you are. I know your story. I know you've launched several 7-figure businesses. Cool. Let's do it. So I choreographed the interview. This is the part that people miss. You have to choreograph the interview and be prepared with your answers and your stories. Anyway, he interviewed me and we did that in front of about 100 of Tony Robbins coaches. I
Wow.
recorded it. I really liked it. I tidied it up a little bit. Bing, bang, boom. Over the weekend, had a PDF. Okay. And that little book's called Marketing Fast Track. So with that PDF, I then actually called some people that had been on TV before. I got 2 TV appearances. And then I started reaching out to my list and offered them the free book with some videos to add more value around marketing and messaging. And then at the end, hey, if you'd like to know more and you'd like a business breakthrough call, you can do that here. So that book, once it was actually printed, people could get the book for free, but they would pay $4.77 shipping and handling. This is actually a pretty key point, though. I want to circle back around to that. Anyway, so that book, I spent about $12,000 in advertising, and it generated $250,000 in 90 days.
Wow.
$250,000 in 90 days from $12,000 ad spend. So why did that work? It worked because I do know about marketing and messaging, so I was a good messenger. And it also worked because it was short and clear. And the added trick, so to speak, or hack, even if people invest only a couple of dollars, even $4.77, they're far more serious prospects than if they get your ebook for free.
Yeah.
Also, then I had their contact information and could follow up. Also, even though ebooks are great, if you have a physical book in hand, it's like a silent salesperson. And so it reminds the person about you. So people would get my book, they would read it, and then the book was still there on their shelf. Maybe they would call me, a week or 2 later or set up a call. So the free book and upsell, I've done it. Uh, Many other people have done it. Jeff Walker. So in the book Turn Words into Wealth, you can see a number of different examples, and you can see uh, people can offer various different opportunities to invest at different levels. I didn't do that. I just went from the book to, do you want help with your messaging and publishing your book?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So We are running short on time, and the two of my favorite strategies are the ones we're actually going to leave the reader to get a copy of your book to find out. But I want to skip ahead to strategy number 7. It was best for last, your favorite. Again, I'll leave the big reveal to you. What's the 7th strategy, and why is it your favorite?
I love this one. It's the evergreen bestseller. So one of the things I really love to encourage people is don't think about getting a New York Times bestseller or a Wall Street Journal bestseller or that big spike of sales for just one day. Instead, think of your book like your baby, like your child, and you want to launch it powerfully and effectively, yes, but you want it to make a difference for decades to come. It's your intellectual property. It's part of your legacy. And a book is like amazing. Like Jordan Peterson said, it's amazing that a book is like more durable than a castle. A book can really make a difference to many people for many years. And one of the things I love about books is I've been mentored by so many people who aren't even alive.
Yeah.
So your book can be like that. It can be a seed that can germinate whenever somebody reads it. So I really love people to lean into their book as an evergreen bestseller.
I love that. So before I let you go, I've got one more question for you here, Aurora, and that is, I just want to ask all my guests, what would you say is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
I think the biggest secret that I wish that wasn't the secret at all is that you are capable of far more than you think.
Mm.
We all are. And we need to, well, what works best is to lean into mindset first. And the way I do that is just, use me. How can I be of service? So I think when we show up as a contribution, seeking to be of service, we can achieve so much more than we think, or so much more can be achieved through us than we think.
Yeah. Aurora, absolutely amazing. Book's great. This episode's been fantastic. Where can folks find more out about you, the work you do? Where can they get a copy of your book?
Well, they can get a copy of Turn Words into Wealth wherever books are sold, or if they'd like the free ebook, they can go to turnwordsintowealth.com. And Same Page Publishing is at samepagepublishing.com. Thanks, Scott.
Cool.
It's such a pleasure connecting with you.
Likewise. Thanks for being on. Really an honor having you here today. For those of you watching and listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.